Some of us manage to have our cake and eat it too, or in this case, our wine and drink it too. Brian Overstreet and his wife are living their dream. Founder of a new startup offering a user-friendly software to track adverse drug reactions, Brian is also an owner of Bruliam Wines in Healdsburg, California. The hip little town in Sonoma County is home to some of the finest vineyards and restaurants in California wine country. Brian maintains an office in a small craftsman house turned office just down the street from such culinary delights as the oh-so-French charcuterie and the well-known Scopa restaurant. Just 10 minutes from his office are world-renowned Rodney Strong and J Vineyards. Let's talk about your business first.
Sure, we've got to pay the bills.
So tell us about adverseevents.com.
Sure.
What's the purpose of it?
Well, the purpose is that there's a huge information gap right now in the healthcare industry, which is that nobody really knows exactly how many drug side effects are being caused by specific drugs out there. And we've gone out and licensed the data from the FDA, spent about 18 months thoroughly cleaning it up with a process that we call the RX filter, which is a proprietary 17-step cleansing process. And that allows us then to put out on the web now fully integrated, fully aggregated reports on over 4,000 drugs and specifically what side effects those are causing.
We met with Brian and hopped over to his winery to talk about his business and his wines. Before tasting the wine, Brian showed me a bit about what makes Zinfandel grapes so difficult to convert to wine and told us about the vineyard at the end of the valley where he gets his grapes. The Rock Pile Vineyard in Dry Creek is known for its elevated rocky soil, low yield, and intensely flavored grapes. In order to get the fruit from a rock pile vineyard, Brian's wife stalked and bribed the Mauritz family with baked goodies and treats. We tasted the wine to great delight. It's one of the most elegant, light Zinfandels I've ever tried. But it wasn't always so. Brian shared with us the story of his first vintage.
It took us a couple of practice runs to get it like this, and the nice thing about wine is every year you hopefully can make it better. But yeah, the first year that we made wine for bottling and sale was '08, and we were making two different Pinots, one from Santa Lucia Highlands, which is in Monterey, and one from the Anderson Valley, which is about an hour and a half north of here. And '08 was the year of the really bad fires. And what happened was the vines didn't burn, but there was a blanket of smoke over the whole valley, and that smoke got sucked into the wine skins. So when you tasted them and when you tested them early on, tasted fine, everything was great, but when you went to ferment, all that smoke flavor got sucked into the wine.
Oh, really? So that's why you bought the grapes, because they tasted
They tasted great, they tested great, we ran them through all sort of analysis, they were perfect. And 5 days later, when we started fermentation, it smelled like barbecue. And a little bit of smoke and Pinot.
And you hadn't even put the steak
nice.
on yet.
No. So, yeah, our first year, despite doing everything right, we ended up having to flush down the drain half of our production because we couldn't put it out there.
All of the grapes from Alexander Valley.
Anderson Valley.
Anderson Valley. And then, Alexander Valley's here.
Yeah.
And then you had the Santa Lucia.
So the Santa Lucia, the wine actually turned out really nice. We got a 91-point score on it. We were really happy.
Wow.
The funny thing about that is we were doing a blind tasting a few weeks ago, and our neighbor brought over some wine. We brought some wine. We were trying them around. We got to this one wine, and I was smelling, trying to taste it. And I looked at him and I said, I have no idea what this wine is. And of course, he pulled it out of the bag. And it was our '08
This was
Santa
recently?
Lucia Pinot Noir. This is like 3 weeks ago. And it blew my mind. I'm like, wow, that's better than I remember. So, with age, it gets a little bit better.
That's good, yeah.
Yeah.
So your wife is the winemaker.
She is. Unfortunately, she's not here today. She's actually in the warehouse working for a living. But she was a medical doctor for a number of years, first surgery, then pathology. And after having the kids, she decided she wanted to take a break from working. And then we fell in love with wine and had the crazy idea to start a wine company, a winery. And it gave her the ability to use that science background again She went back to school to UC Davis, got an enology degree, and she's having a great time, and she's doing amazing work. So it's really quite amazing what's happened in the last few years.
So you're the consultant at the winemaking project, and she consults you on the adverse
Right.
drug
Right.
effects.
Exactly. It's kind of a weird thing that I can talk to her about my day job. She can talk to me about her day job, and sort of we can solve this separation of church and state, and it works out. Yeah, it's nice.
So the Anderson Valley, you said it's on the northmost point of what's good wine growing region
In California.
In California, what makes good wine growing region?
Oh gosh, there's so many things that go into that. I mean, temperature, elevation, weather patterns.
Now,
soil.
elevation, isn't it all about
No,
200 feet above sea level?
No, there's huge variations. I mean, we're pretty much a couple hundred feet above sea level right here. But for example, our rock pile zone is over 1,000 feet above sea level. We're up a pretty big mountain, and that affects things in two ways. You're above the fog line, so you get your sun and your moisture tucked in, but you also get a soil difference because you have the drainage and the runoff from the mountainside. And that creates a lot of, we got a bunch of vineyard dogs just ran out at us here. But,
Hey guys.
but it makes a huge, huge difference. And you even within the Dry Creek Valley or Sonoma County, I mean, there's so many different microclimates that influence the taste and texture and end product of wine, which is why it's so interesting. Even year to year, you can make a wine from the same vineyard, and it's going to taste different if you are honest about your winemaking practice and just want to honor the grapes and what comes out of the vineyard.
Now, what does that mean, honor the grapes?
Well, you can do things chemically to alter wine. I mean,
Okay,
it's
to sort of guarantee.
Right.
Like some of the cheaper wines might be.
Right. You can create consistency year to year like you would in beer. I mean, every Budweiser you've ever had in your life tastes exactly the same. You can do that in wine too. But if you're honest about your winemaking and you're true to what's coming out of the vineyard, there's going to be variation from year to year. They're going to have more moisture one year. It's going to be colder the next year. You may have rot one year. And that's the beauty of winemaking. It's also the frustration of winemaking, in that you don't know what you're getting until you're really into it.
So when you say honor the grapes, each year is unique, so you go with that. You don't try to make it last year's.
Exactly. You can't. I mean, well, you could, but I think the reality is that most people buy higher-end wines to taste the vineyard and to taste the winemaker's touch on how he or she is influencing that wine. And so otherwise it becomes a commodity. You might as well be drinking apple juice, and it's all going to taste the same. And that's the beauty of wine.
Now, the Dry Creek, we're in the Dry Creek Valley here, so it's warm today.
Yeah, it's very warm today.
And so they're known, I mean, the grapes usually grown here are Zinfandel?
A lot of Zin, a little bit of Syrah, Petite Syrah, some Cab, but yeah, mostly Zin. If you think of Dry Creek Valley, you usually associate that with Zinfandel.
And that's a bigger, bolder flavor.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. The nice thing about Dry Creek Valley Zins is that they're more peppery than jammy in terms of their taste, so you don't get that sort of cloying fruit thing. So longer tannins and peppery and a little bit darker fruit than the bright red you find in other places, especially on the other end of Sonoma County.
That's great. It's great talking to a businessman who's also doing what he loves.
Yeah, well, you gotta have fun, right?
We're inspired by Brian and his wife, who are carving out a corner in business and living their dream.